Portland police officers guard Fred Meyer's dumpsters, face off with residents seeking discarded food. So Fred Meyer's is a uh, uh, supermarket. Or it's a store. I take it, and their freezers broke during the winter storm that they've been having. And because of that, they had to discard all of a whole bunch of perishable food, meat, different things like that. So they threw it out into a dumpster, which, being as cold as it was, the snow, most of it kept. So naturally, as people do, people showed up. People who like, we are in the middle of a pandemic right now. You look at the homelessness crisis that's going on in this country right now. There's a million reasons why people will show up to do this. Like, if people need to eat, give people food. As that's a whole different aside that I can go on about how we should be feeding people.
Roughly a dozen Portland police officers faced off with a small group at a Northeast Portland Fred Meyer on Tuesday after people tried to take food that had been thrown away. Images on social media showed mountains of packaged meat, cheese, and juice, as well as whole turkeys and racks of ribs that had been tossed into two large dumpsters near the store. You can see images here of people, just this piles and piles of food that is not past its expiration. And this food had also been sitting out in the cold because it's so freezing out. It was so cold that it caused power outages. So this food has been preserved. This is good, meats that are not past their expiration date, juices, meats, and people, so people came and showed up. Employees were guarding the dumpsters when they showed up to get some of the discarded food. This person, Morgan McNiff, began to film the employees and reported staff members threatened to call the police on them for doing so. Eventually, the staff members did call the cops. This is capitalism in action, folks. So this is what, they talk about, like, the bread lines under socialism, but look at this. Like, people are starving so much so that they need to go, to these dumpsters to get food, which is, let's be real. Like, let's not portray this as like, oh, this is like people tossing old spoiled food in a dumpster or something. This is good food that should have been, think about that. Like, this is a time where it's like, why not make sure that food, other people have means of preserving that, it can be used up in a day. All it needs is, it's still good. It could be all used today. And people that showed up, they didn't go and start like piling it. Everybody showed up and they took a few things, they took a few things that they needed and they left more for other people. This is how community works and stuff. And it's like, So they said about 15 people eventually gathered in an attempt to collect food. And then at that point, a dozen officers arrived at the scene. So for 15 people, you need 12 cops to show up, to come and stop these people. One of the officers, by the way, wasn't wearing a mask. So if you're thinking that this is about public safety and you're saying, oh no, this is just the cops trying to keep the public safe, they don't want them eating spoiled food or anything like that, or getting sick. No. Don't kid yourself. Okay. These cops don't give a flying F about these people. Okay. They showed up not wearing a mask, refused to put one on until a supervisor arrived and brought him one. Okay. So they're not out here because they care about people or anything like that. And this was in Portland, Oregon, as we said. So that's what they were doing. This is what this is what our taxpayer dollars are paying for here, folks. Not to go out there and to support the homeless, to support the hungry. No. It's to make sure that the homeless and the hungry don't get free food that is being thrown away. It's going to be discarded and tossed into a trash somewhere.
Cops do not serve the people. They protect property.
Yeah.
And they make sure that we don't kill each other because we are the property of capitalism and we have to produce for the system. I mean, that's the only reason that they care about the larger crimes. But for the most part, all they really care about is making sure that homeless people can't sleep somewhere, that they can't eat. They make sure that, they make sure. That's why they demonize looting to this absolute absurd amount, where we're talking about people going out and killing people like in Kenosha because of destruction of property. And this is the shit that this country cares about. This is what the police are here for. They're here to protect property. They're not here to help the community in any way, shape, fashion, or form.
Everybody's heard the trope or whatever, possession is 9/10 of the law. That's because possession, when you possess something, it's your property, and that's why it's 9/10 of the law. Okay. Because it's all about property and the law is all about property. All right. And, on the topic of reparations, Black people used to be the property. All right. And that's why we talk about we need some reparations for this thing. Okay. Because we used to be the property. All right. But yeah, this is this. And, when we talk about defunding the police, like this is what we're talking about. We're talking about redirecting resources. Like this is not a job for cops. Like, why did 12 cops need to show up here? Y'all, this is what you don't have any. Yeah,
who's in danger? This you talk about a victimless crime. Like they were throwing this shit away. The second they threw it out, it's trash. It's so it's still in their possession enough that they need to call the police to defend. I'm not even sure what the cops were there to do. They were protecting trash. They were protecting trash.
Yep.
They relinquished ownership of this shit to motherfucking nature at that point.
Yeah, and look at that. Like trash has more value than like Black lives in this country. Like, let's be real here. Like, look at how cops handle Black human beings in this country versus how they handle, trash. They're willing to go out there to protect trash, but look how they treat, Black human beings and in our society. So, when we talk about defunding the police, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about shifting resources away from the police and into, things like providing homes and food. Listen, I don't want people to have to dig through dumpsters to feed themselves. One, I don't think that this food ever needed to make its way to a dumpster. Like, it shouldn't have even been placed into a dumpster. It should have been immediately donated to homeless shelters everywhere. Like, why would you toss this food in the trash? You could literally, let me explain to you why they would throw this food in the trash. Because fiscally, it costs them less to dump the food in the trash than it would cost them, the private corporation, to take that food and to feed the public with it. All right. Now, fiscally, it saves money if we don't waste things, right? If we don't allow more waste, right? It saves, it's sustainable. So what would be better for the community would be to make sure that this food wasn't wasted and it instead got used. But that's not their purpose. That's not the goal, because it's not profitable. All right. Because it wasn't profitable for this one private corporation. Was it profitable for the community overall to handle it, to disseminate those goods and resources to the rest of the community? Absolutely. It would be profitable to the community at whole, but it's not profitable to this one private corporation. So they do it. And then they turn around and they call up the taxpayer funded cops to come and do what? To those people, those civilians are the ones paying those cops salaries as well, and they're paid to come out there and to do harm to them. And let's be real, like, they put these people at greater risk, right? The cops, one, just showing up in general, these are Black and brown people. You put them at risk when you call cops on Black people and brown people in this country. White people need to stop calling the damn cops on people. Not just Black people, but anybody.
This was a corporate Karen. This company performed a Karen.
Yeah,
is the only way to describe this shit. If this had been a singular person, the world would have like super mocked this person, and I think that this company deserves to be fucking just destroyed for this, because this is absolutely, what in your right minds would make you think to call the police on people for this? Yeah. What if they had shown up and just shot someone? I never want to hear a discussion about the police without people pointing out that could have happened, because that always could have happened. They've proven it at this point.
Yep, absolutely. And so, and that's you put people at risk in that way, and you also put people further at risk by showing up there without a mask. Like, these people that showed up and were doing this, like, they're wearing masks, they're protecting themselves. It's the cops that show up without wearing a mask, putting putting public health at risk, right? So the idea that cops are there to protect communities, not unless you are one of the wealthiest white people, a property owning, white person. Those are the only people that cops are there to protect. All the rest of us, they're not. They will protect property over us, over our lives, and this is why we need to funnel funding away from cops and into social services to protect people. All right. If people are housed and fed, then this doesn't even happen. If people are all housed and properly fed, then this is never an issue. And instead of paying those cops and paying those salaries to go do what they just did there, we should be paying people to be, one, either providing food, feeding the hungry, feeding the poor, or building houses for the homeless, right? Put that money into, giving people's homes and giving people food, right? To make sure that people are taken care of.
When we look at like what violence in Boston for like the smaller local people may know of are doing, where they're getting out there and feeding the communities, the food drop boxes and community fridges, like the people are taking care of each other through this pandemic in a time that has shown that the system will completely fail us if we do not look out for each other right now. And that is like again, this is another thing, like this system of capitalism is just completely will fail us every single time and leave us fending for ourselves. It will always leave us fending for ourselves. And this is another case of that, because this was an opportunity where they could have donated this food. They could have helped people in a time where people most need it. I cannot think of a more ludicrous time where your solution was, I'm going to just throw this the fuck away.
Yep. In the middle of a pandemic, with people,
in the middle of a pandemic,
mass unemployment, people struggling, just trying to make ends meet. And this is what the cops are out there doing,
And for people who don't care, always remember that a large portion of this country is one incident away from homelessness.
Yes.
At any given time.
78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, meaning, 50% of Americans cannot survive a $500 emergency without having to, borrow out money. All right. So they don't have the money in the assets to survive a $500 emergency. 50%, 1 in every 2 people in this country. All right. Half of all people in this country can't survive a $500 emergency. All right. Without having to borrow. All right. So, and can they borrow? Many of them, no, because of credit and all, and the fact that they're surrounded by other people that are also struggling. They don't have it. They have to sell their, the things that they have, pawning and that's no way to live. All right. That's no way for anyone to live. That causes all kinds of mental health issues. When you're one step away from destitution at every step of the way, it's such a burden on your mental health and your psyche. We don't talk about the extra toll that takes on our healthcare system and just on people in general, right?
I mean, this country is only very recently starting to take mental health seriously. It feels like as an actual country, like I've always like there are people in the industry who talk about it, but we're almost at the point where people have where people are talking about this, even though I feel like a lot of the time people scapegoat terrorism, mass shootings, things like that on a mental health issues to a point where they're kind of like I don't know, scapegoating the mental health community. Frankly, if as an aside, like sometimes money gets funneled into it because of it, like I guess I'm happy, but that is something that we still don't talk enough about or put anywhere like enough into. But I mean, our healthcare system is broken, so I'm not surprised that our mental health care system is also broken as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because mental health, even though, your brain is a part of your body, last I checked, so you think mental health. It's exactly. It should literally just be called health. Like it's just health. It's just part of your health, right? It's like the fact that we even have to distinguish between the two is really, totally absurd.